Something just happened to the United States government's balance sheet that was not supposed to happen for another 2 years, and almost nobody noticed the moment it crossed the line. In the last few days, the national debt of the United States quietly passed $40 trillion. Not projected, not forecasted. Already happened. The Congressional Budget Office did not expect this number until sometime in 2028. It arrived in August of 2026, roughly 2 years early. And on the very same week that number crossed the line, gold surged to its highest price in 3 months, silver touched its highest level in 2 months, and the dollar sank to one of its weakest points in over a year. If you think that's a coincidence, stay with me, because by the end of this video, you will understand exactly why those three things are connected, why some of the smartest money in the world has been quietly repositioning for over a year, and why what happens to the dollar in the next few months could shape the value of your paycheck, your savings, and your retirement account. If you're interested in money, investing, gold, silver, and protecting your financial future, subscribe to Money Insights and like this video, because every week we break down the biggest financial stories in simple English. No jargon, no hype, just what's actually happening and why it matters to you. Here's where this story really begins. 2 days before that $40 trillion number became public, the US Treasury made an announcement that most people scrolled right past. It said it would double the size of its buyback operations for long-dated government bonds, the 10-year, 20-year, and 30-year notes, to at least $4 billion per operation, starting in early September. On the surface, that sounds like a boring technical adjustment. It is not. A buyback means the government is stepping in to purchase its own debt back from the market, to prevent long-term borrowing costs from spiraling out of control. Why would the government need to do that? Because just days earlier, the yield on the 30-year Treasury bond, essentially the interest rate the U.S. government pays to borrow money for 3 decades, climbed to its highest level since 2007. Think about that for a second. Not since the year before the global financial crisis has it cost this much for the U.S. government to borrow long-term money. And when borrowing costs rise that fast, it doesn't just affect Washington. It ripples into mortgage rates, car loans, credit cards, and business financing for every single American. But here's where everything changes. The moment the Treasury announced it would buy back its own debt to calm the bond market, the dollar didn't strengthen. It fell. It dropped to a level not seen in more than 3 months. Normally, when a government takes decisive action to stabilize its finances, markets breathe a sigh of relief. This time, traders rate it the opposite way. They saw a government essentially printing confidence into its own bond market to avoid a worse outcome, and they started asking an uncomfortable question. If the world's largest economy needs to intervene in its own debt market just to keep long-term rates from breaking, what does that say about the dollar sitting on top of all that debt? That question is exactly why gold and silver started moving. Gold, which had actually fallen hard earlier this year after touching an all-time high above $5,500 an ounce in January and sinking nearly 30% by the end of June, suddenly reversed. In just the month of August alone, gold climbed roughly 15%. Silver did even better, surging close to 19% in the same stretch. Together, the two metals added almost $5 trillion in combined market value in a matter of weeks. As of this recording, gold is trading above $4,600 an ounce, and silver is holding near $69, both sitting close to multi-month highs. Now here's the part most people miss. This isn't really a story about gold and silver going up. It's a story about trust and paper money going down, and gold and silver are simply the mirror reflecting that shift back at us. To understand why, we need to rewind further to a decision made thousands of miles away that most Americans never heard about. But that changed how the entire world thinks about holding dollars. Back in 2022, when Russia invaded Ukraine, the United States and its allies froze roughly $300 billion of Russian central bank reserves almost overnight. For decades, the working assumption among every central bank on earth was simple. Government bonds, especially U.S. Treasuries, are the safest possible place to park national wealth. That assumption just got shattered in real time for every country watching. It didn't matter whether you agreed with the sanctions or not. What mattered is that a major country's reserves, assets it believed were untouchable, were frozen by a political decision. Central banks around the world took notice. Since 2013, China has cut its holdings of U.S. Treasury bonds by more than half, roughly 52%. That is not a random portfolio adjustment. According to veteran resource investor Rick Rule, Beijing didn't run a spreadsheet and simply decide gold would outperform bonds. It watched what happened to someone else's reserves, and it repriced a risk it had always assumed was zero. If your money can be frozen by someone else's decision, is it really your money? That single realization helps explain one of the most important trends in the global economy right now. Central banks bought more than 1,000 tons of gold in 2024 alone, the third consecutive year that figure has been crossed. That has never happened before in modern financial history. 3 straight years of central banks buying gold at that pace. Meanwhile, the dollar's share of global foreign currency reserves has slipped to around 58%, down from roughly 71% back in the year 2000. That's not a collapse. The dollar is still by far the most dominant currency on Earth, but a steady, multi-decade decline in the world's confidence in holding dollars is not nothing, and it is not slowing down. The International Monetary Fund actually tracks this shift in a dataset most people have never heard of, called COFR, short for Currency Composition of Official Foreign Exchange Reserves. It's essentially a running tally of what currencies the world's central banks are choosing to hold. And what that data shows is not panic, not a stampede away from the dollar, but something slower and in some ways more unsettling. A patient, methodical rebalancing year after year, away from dollars and into gold and a handful of alternative currencies. The dollar remains the anchor, but an anchor that gets a little lighter every year is still an anchor that's changing. Here's an unexpected statistic that puts this in perspective. Gold makes up roughly 15% of the average central bank's reserves today, and unlike a treasury bond, it carries no counterparty risk. Nobody can freeze it, cancel it, or decide by decree that it's worth less tomorrow. It sits in a vault, and it holds its value based on nothing but scarcity and trust in the metal itself, not trust in any single government's promise. Now let's bring this back home, because this is where it stops being an abstract global story and starts being a story about your own wallet. On Friday, Federal Reserve Chair Kevin Warsh is scheduled to speak at the central bank's most closely watched annual gathering, the Jackson Hole Symposium. Markets are on edge waiting to hear what he says, because his tone could shape whether the Fed cuts interest rates next month or holds steady. Analysts widely expect he won't give a clean, direct signal, but even the ambiguity itself moves markets. Because right now, every hint about future interest rates gets read through the lens of a government drowning in debt that desperately needs borrowing costs to come down. And that's the trap at the heart of this whole story. If the Fed cuts rates to help the government manage $40 trillion in debt, it also tends to weaken the dollar and fuel inflation, which pushes people further into gold and silver. If the Fed refuses to cut and keeps rates high to defend the dollar, it makes servicing that same $40 trillion even more expensive, which raises the same worries about long-term fiscal stability that are already spooking bond markets. There is no version of this where the pressure simply disappears. It just shifts from one place to another. Almost nobody noticed this detail buried in the same week's news, but it may matter just as much as the speech itself. Gold-backed exchange-traded funds, the kind ordinary investors buy through a regular brokerage account, have seen a noticeable pickup in inflows over recent weeks. That's a meaningfully different signal than central banks buying gold. It means everyday investors, not just national governments, are starting to quietly hedge their own portfolios. When both the biggest institutional players and regular retail investors start moving in the same direction at the same time, that's usually not a coincidence worth ignoring. Let's slow down here, because numbers like $40 trillion are almost impossible for anyone to actually feel. So picture a retired couple in their late 60s, living on a fixed pension and Social Security. They don't own government bonds. They don't trade currencies. But when the dollar weakens and inflation creeps back up, the cost of their groceries, their medications, and their utility bills rises faster than their fixed income does. Their money isn't disappearing from a bank account. It's quietly buying less every single month. That is what a weakening dollar actually feels like at the kitchen table, not a headline, but a slowly shrinking grocery cart. Or picture a young couple in their early 30s trying to buy their first home. Mortgage rates are tied directly to those long-term treasury yields we just talked about. When 30-year yields spike to levels not seen since 2007, so do mortgage rates. Every fraction of a percentage point added to a 30-year mortgage can mean thousands of dollars more paid over the life of the loan. That couple has never heard of a treasury buyback operation, but they will absolutely feel its effects the day they sit down at the closing table. Now picture one more household, a single parent working 2 jobs, one at a warehouse during the week and weekend shifts, delivering groceries. They don't own stocks. They don't follow the bond market. But every trip to the store, they feel the slow creep of prices that never quite seems to reverse. That's the quiet, unglamorous version of what economists mean when they talk about currency debasement. It rarely shows up as a single dramatic price spike. It shows up as a receipt that's a little longer than it used to be, for the exact same basket of groceries, month after month. Now here's a hidden connection almost nobody talks about, and it's specific to silver. Unlike gold, silver isn't just a store of value. It's an industrial metal essential for solar panels, electric vehicles, and the explosion of data centers being built to power artificial intelligence. Every one of those industries needs physical silver, and demand from all three has been rising at the same time that mine supply has struggled to keep up, creating a persistent physical deficit in the silver market. So while gold moves mostly on fear and trust, silver is being pulled from 2 directions at once. Investors seeking safety, and factories that simply cannot build their products without it. That combination is part of why silver has outperformed gold for much of this year. Here's an unexpected detail that traders watch closely but almost never makes headlines. The COMEX exchange in New York separates its silver inventories into two categories: registered silver, which is available for immediate delivery against a futures contract, and eligible silver, which sits in the same vaults but isn't currently offered for sale. Over the past couple of years, the pool of registered, deliverable silver has repeatedly tightened, even as total warehouse stockpiles look large on paper. That distinction matters enormously because a market can look well supplied at first glance, while the actually available metal, the silver someone could take delivery of tomorrow, is far tighter than the headline number suggests. It's a bit like a grocery store that looks fully stocked from the front window, while the backroom shelves that actually restock the shelves are nearly bare. Think about the person actually building those solar panels or assembling battery packs for electric vehicles. Their job depends on a steady, affordable supply of physical silver flowing into the factory every single week. When that supply tightens and industrial buyers have to compete harder against investors for the same physical metal, it isn't an abstract trading floor story. It can mean higher input costs for the very factories quietly powering the clean energy and AI build-out that dominates the economic conversation right now. History tells a very different story than most people assume when they hear about a weak dollar. This is not the first time the world has questioned the dollar's dominance. In the 1970s, after the US abandoned the gold standard entirely, inflation spiraled and gold prices multiplied many times over within a few short years. In the early 2000s, after a period of large deficits and a weakening dollar, gold quietly began a multi-year climb that most people ignored until it was already underway. Neither of those periods ended with the dollar collapsing into irrelevance. The dollar adapted and eventually stabilized each time. But in both cases, the people who recognized the pattern early and treated precious metals as insurance rather than a lottery ticket were the ones who came out ahead when the dust settled. Here's a future possibility worth sitting with for a moment. If the Treasury's buyback program only offers temporary relief, as some analysts already suspect, the same pressure on long-term borrowing costs could resurface within months, forcing an even larger intervention down the road. That's not a certainty. Historically, markets often find a way to stabilize even when the underlying trend looks concerning in the short term. But it's exactly the kind of scenario that keeps central bank reserve managers awake at night, and exactly why so many of them have already been building their gold positions rather than waiting to see how the story ends. There's also a geopolitical layer unfolding in real time. Just this week, the U.S. Treasury Secretary unveiled a new round of sanctions targeting Iran, even as Iranian officials publicly said they expect major trading partners to reject the pressure and signaled they remain open to talks with Washington. Sanctions like this add yet another thread of uncertainty into an already tense global picture, and historically, rising geopolitical tension tends to push nervous money toward gold as a hedge against the unpredictable. Notice something else moving in the opposite direction, and it's a contradiction worth pointing out. Oil prices actually slipped in the hours leading into the new Iran sanctions announcement, even though sanctions on a major oil producer would normally be expected to push crude prices higher. That mismatch tells its own story. Traders appear more focused on the broader picture, slowing global demand in a market already flush with supply, than on any single geopolitical headline. It's a reminder that not every piece of this puzzle moves in the direction you'd instinctively expect, and untangling which signals actually matter takes more than a glance at one day's headline. So let's zoom out and look at the bigger pattern forming underneath all of these individual headlines. A national debt crossing $40 trillion 2 years ahead of schedule. A treasury forced into buying back its own bonds to calm a nervous market. 30-year borrowing costs at their highest point since before the financial crisis. A dollar sliding to multi-month lows. Central banks buying gold at a record pace for 3 straight years. China steadily reducing its treasury holdings since watching Russia's reserves get frozen. And a Federal Reserve chair about to speak at the exact moment markets are desperate for clarity he likely won't give. None of these are separate stories. They are 5 or 6 threads of the exact same rope, and that rope is the slowly eroding, though far from broken, confidence in the dollar as the world's unquestioned safe haven. Now, a reality check, because it's important not to let this tip into panic. The dollar is not about to collapse. It remains, by a wide margin, the most used currency on earth for trade, reserves, and global finance. No other currency, not the euro, not the yuan, has anywhere near the depth, liquidity, or trust required to replace it anytime soon. Gold and silver prices can also fall sharply and quickly, as they did earlier this year when gold dropped nearly 30% from its January peak in just a few months. Anyone who treats precious metals as a guaranteed one-way bet is ignoring history. What's happening is not a sudden crisis. It's a slow, structural shift playing out over years, not days, and it deserves attention, not fear. Some analysts believe gold could push past $5,000 an ounce again if current trends continue. Others caution that a strong Jackson Hole message from the Fed or a resolution to Middle East tensions could just as easily cool the rally in the short term. Nobody knows exactly which way this breaks in the next few weeks. What history does show is that periods like this one, where debt, currency doubts, and central bank behavior all move in the same direction at once, tend to matter far more over the following several years than they do in any single week. Some experts who track precious metals for a living put it simply: gold is likely to resume its long-term climb over time, though not necessarily in a straight line, and could revisit territory well above $5,000 an ounce if current trends persist. Others point out that timing any single month is close to guesswork, and that the smarter approach for an ordinary investor isn't trying to call the exact top or bottom, but spreading purchases out over time, rather than trying to time one perfect entry point. So why should any of this matter to an ordinary worker, a young professional just starting to save, or a parent trying to plan for their children's future? Because the story of the dollar isn't really about currencies trading on a screen somewhere. It's about what a dollar in your pocket, your paycheck, or your savings account will actually be able to buy 5 or 10 years from now. Understanding why central banks are quietly stacking gold, why bond markets are under pressure, and why silver is being pulled by industries you interact with every single day, whether it's the solar panels on someone's roof or the data centers running the AI tools people use daily, gives you a clearer picture of where real, tangible value is heading, long before it shows up as a headline everyone else is reacting to. So let's go back to where we started. The unthinkable did happen to the dollar this year. Not a collapse, not a crisis, but a debt milestone arriving years ahead of schedule. A treasury forced to intervene in its own bond market, and a slow but unmistakable crack in the assumption that the dollar is untouchable. Gold and silver didn't rise because of magic or hype. They rose because, thread by thread, the world's central banks, its bond markets, and its industries are all quietly answering the same question. What do you hold on to when the foundation underneath the world's reserve currency starts to shift, even just a little? History suggests the answer isn't loud and it isn't sudden. It's patient. It's been sitting in vaults for thousands of years, waiting for exactly this kind of moment. And now you understand why. If you learned something new today, make sure to subscribe to Money Insights and like this video. More powerful financial insights are coming next.